gives. 2025 Arirang Overseas TV Viewers Survey. We look forward to hearing from you.
얼쑤! 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 동문박 나가오면 선월사 철사 없고 서문박 나가오면 관악묘를 모셔 있고 북문박 나가오면 교롱산성 태보가비 남문박 나가오면 황할루
drawing more fans from all over the world. Local consumer prices continue to hover at the 2% rate in April.
Turning to robots to allow the visually impaired the chance to better indulge in cultural experiences. Like the number of hybrid cars are registered in South Korea has surpassed 2 million with this locally developed Yuri rocket.
Arirang.
도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
함께여서 우리는 더 자유롭고 더 멀리 갈 수 있어.
닫힌 문이 아니라 열린 질문으로.
나에게 APEC은
자유,
융합,
국제성,
다양성,
포용,
개방.
신라의 정신이 APEC 2025로 이어집니다.
Welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. As the trade deadline for a tariff deal with the United States looms, South Korea's newly appointed industry minister is now in Washington for talks. In the meantime, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened trading partners, saying Washington will only lower tariffs if a country agrees to open its market, adding that those that fail to do so will face much higher tariffs. With less than 100 days left until the APEC leaders' meeting takes place here in South Korea, there are renewed hopes that the meeting will serve as an opportunity to show that Korea is back on track, following the political turmoil last year. So as more countries continue to move to strike tariff deals with the United States, South Korea is no exception. Seoul's trade officials are set to hold talks with their U.S. counterparts in Washington for 2 days starting Thursday local time. For more on this, we have our Park Konu on the line for us. Konu, do tell us more.
Yes, Sunji, with Trump's deadline for reciprocal tariffs approaching, South Korea is entering the final stages of negotiations in Washington. Industry Minister Kim Jong-kwan landed in the U.S. on Wednesday for 2 days of talks with Trump administration figures, including Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and Energy Secretary Chris Wright. The meetings are taking place following the U.S. reaching a deal with Japan to lower tariff rates from 25% to 15%. On questions about the deal between the U.S. and Japan, Industry Minister Kim said it was too early to make any judgments.
We're carefully examining the US-Japan deal to determine how we should respond. Some elements we can refer to, while others need more of a comparison.
Speaking on Trump's latest remarks, warning that countries unwilling to open their markets won't see any tariff relief, Kim said that's been Trump's consistent stance and that the government has been closely monitoring the situation. He said his visit can be described as a full-court press, aiming not only for tariff cuts, but also to bolster cooperation in key strategic sectors, such as manufacturing and energy. Finance Minister Gu Yun-chul, along with Chief Free Trade Negotiator Yeo Han-gu, was set to participate in a 2+2 high-level meeting on Friday over tariffs with their U.S. counterparts, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. However, we just learned that the meeting has been canceled due to Bessent's urgent schedule. A finance ministry spokesperson said the U.S. has proposed rescheduling the meeting within the next few days, and both sides are working to set a new date as soon as possible. So it seems we'll have to wait and see for any further announcements, as this could be the last chance for South Korea to achieve a breakthrough. So that's all I have for you now. Back to you, Angie.
All right, Kono, thank you for that report. And so as we just heard, South Korea is making last-minute efforts to strike a trade agreement with the United States before the August 1st deadline set by U.S. President Donald Trump. For more on this, we're joined by Professor Min Jung-un, professor at Korea National Diplomatic Academy. Professor Min, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So though the meeting set for Friday, the 2+2 meeting, has been canceled, it appears that the industry minister and the top trade negotiator will still be able to hold meeting with their American counterparts, right?
Yes, as you mentioned, I think that South Korea's top officials for trade and economy are meeting their American counterparts for trade talks sometime this week. And the meeting comes just a week before the scheduled end of the U.S. pause on reciprocal tariffs on South Korea. And I think that the key issues of the trade talks include trade balance, non-tariff barriers, and creating high-paying jobs in the United States. And to this end, U.S. want to reduce its trade deficit on South Korea, opening South Korean markets and the South Korea investment to the United States. Meanwhile, South Korea want to lower reciprocal tariffs and sectoral tariffs on orders of steel and aluminum. And during the upcoming meetings, sometime this week, I think the Korean side is expected to emphasize the importance of bilateral cooperation for manufacturing renaissance, as well as cooperation in shipbuilding, semiconductors, and other strategic sectors. Meanwhile, the U.S. side is likely to call for South Korea's investments in the United States, like what Japan did recently, and also opening South Korean markets through the lowering the non-tariff barriers. And specifically, these include the quarantine measures for U.S. agricultural imports, proposed rules for regulating monopolistic online platforms, and the ban on foreign tech companies storing high precision map data on overseas servers. So currently, South Korea is making an all-out effort in its tariff negotiations with the United States. So I expect that they will reach an agreement that would be beneficial for both countries sometime later.
I see. And South Korea's foreign minister could also meet with his American counterpart in Washington. So if that happens, what might be discussed there?
Yes, again, South Korean government is making its all-out effort in its tariff negotiations with the U.S. Specifically, newly appointed foreign, trade, and economic ministers and special presidential envoys, top security advisor, and lawmakers, even lawmakers from both the major parties, are visiting Washington this week. So it shows that South Korea is making a last-ditch effort by mobilizing all available political, administrative, and business capabilities to convince the Trump government to work together on a new deal within the next 10 days. And as you know, on Sunday, the National Security Advisor Ri Sung-nak arrived in Washington, and it is expected that he would meet with his counterparts like the Marco Rubio and have discussions on trade negotiations and broader alliance issues. And the Foreign Minister Jo Hyun is also planning to visit Washington sometime this week to meet his U.S. counterparts, like Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And Minister Jo mentioned that talks with the U.S. should not be seen as a zero-sum game and approach it from a broader perspective to find a win-win situation and further strengthen the ROK-US alliance by thoroughly examining all aspects of comprehensive packages. And in addition, special presidential envoys led by former Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry, KCCI Chairman Park Yong-man, also plans to visit Washington this week. So the South Korea's all-out efforts shows that the trade negotiations with the United States or the Trump government could make a huge impact on its economy and overall relationship with the United States.
Right, that clearly shows that South Korea is making a lot of efforts to reach a trade deal. And in the meantime, Japan reached a trade agreement with the Trump administration yesterday. So based on what Japan gained and conceded to secure the deal, what do you think an agreement will look like for South Korea?
Yes, the President Trump said Tuesday that his government will impose 50% reciprocal tariffs on Japanese products, which is 10% lower than what was previously announced. And President Trump described the deal as perhaps the largest deal ever made, and noted that Japan pledged to make $550 billion investment in the United States, which he said will receive 90% of the profit for the American people. But he did not elaborate on the investment plan. And he also mentioned that Japan will open its market to the U.S. like cars, trucks, and rice, and certain other agricultural products. So it is expected that South Korea will take into account details of the trade deal between U.S. and Japan and may use it as a possible reference for its trade negotiations with Washington. Specifically, the presidential office said that South Korean government is reviewing the details of the deal, and if there are aspects that serve as a reference for its negotiations, it plans to take them into account. And personally, I think that considering that South Korea is in a similar situation with Japan in its trade negotiations with Washington, what Japan got from the trade deal from the United States will be a meaningful reference or threshold that South Korea needed to achieve in the upcoming trade deal with Washington. For example, if Seoul could get 15% reciprocal tariffs and 12.5% sectoral tariffs on autos or the cars, and possibly reduce tariffs on steel and aluminum, unlike Japan, it is likely that the deal would be possibly received in both countries.
Right, we'll have to see if South Korea does manage to reach a deal this week. All right, Professor Min, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So as countries scramble to strike trade deals with the Trump administration before the August deadline, the U.S. leader raised pressure on trading partners, saying that the tariffs will be lowered only when a country opens its market. The White House also touted a deal made earlier with Japan. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday pressed trading partners to open their markets in order to avoid much higher tariffs from the U.S. The U.S. leader made the remarks in a social media post, stressing that Washington will only lower tariffs if a country agrees to open its market, adding that those that fail to do so will be met with much higher tariffs. Trump also said through such agreements, U.S. businesses will boom. The latest remarks put pressure on South Korea and other countries to find ways to open their markets in exchange for the reduced tariff Trump unveiled in April. Seoul has been pushing to avoid the proposed 25% reciprocal tariffs, as well as sector-specific tariffs on steel, aluminum, and automobiles that would be a major blow to its export-reliant economy. Meanwhile, in touting the recent trade deal made with Japan, which lowers its tariff rate to 15%, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said the $500 billion investment from Japan in exchange for the lowered rate will give the U.S. the ability to choose where it will be invested. In an example, Lutnick says if Trump decides to create more antibiotics in the U.S., Japan will fund the project and give it to a U.S. business that will operate the project, while 90% of the profits will go to the American taxpayer and 10% to Japan. The White House said Wednesday that the money could be used to invest in key industries.
And these funds will be spent at President Trump's discretion and direction into key industries such as energy, semiconductors, critical minerals, pharmaceuticals, and shipbuilding.
The spokesperson said there are still many more countries that need to strike a deal with the U.S., adding that Washington has sent 25 letters to countries around the world. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The European Union is also close to reaching a trade deal with the Trump administration that would impose a 15% tariff on EU imports. According to the Financial Times on Wednesday, citing a number of sources, the 15% tariff may be accepted for the bloc to avoid the 30% tariff that U.S. President Donald Trump is warning will take effect starting August. Sources say the two sides are also close to reaching an agreement on tariff exemptions on certain items such as aircraft, distilled spirits, and medical devices. Since April, goods from the EU have faced an additional 10% tariff on top of the existing average U.S. tariff rate of 4.8%. South Korea's real gross domestic product, a key indicator of the economy, grew by 0.6% on quarter in the second quarter of the year. Now, that's according to the Bank of Korea on Thursday, which said the figure is largely driven by the private sector, with exports and consumption playing a major role in supporting growth. Specifically, private consumption rose 0.5%, while government spending increased 1.2%, with both domestic demand and net exports each contributing 0.3 percentage points. The bounce back came as GDP shrank by 0.2% in the first quarter compared to the last quarter of 2024. While the economy avoided consecutive contractions, investment remained sluggish, with construction and facility investment both down 1.5%. South Korean chipmaker SK hynix has reported its best ever quarterly performance in the second quarter thanks to surging demand for AI chips, including high bandwidth memory chips. According to preliminary data from the company on Thursday, its operating profit came to around $6.7 billion, up by nearly 70% on year. Sales also jumped by over 35%. Operating profits and sales both set new all-time quarterly records, breaking the previous highs in the last quarter of 2024. With less than 100 days left until South Korea hosts the annual economic meeting of leaders in the Asia-Pacific, Arirang News sat down with a senior organizer to highlight the core focus agendas and how preparations have continued throughout the months. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young has this report.
South Korea is marking the revival of K-democracy and setting the tone to inspire regional cooperation to connect, innovate and prosper amid mounting global complexity. Under the theme of Building a Sustainable Tomorrow, South Korea will host the annual meeting of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum this October in the historic city of Gyeongju. Leaders from 21 member economies will tackle emerging challenges ranging from artificial intelligence and democratic shifts to sustainable and inclusive growth.
As this year's chair, the Republic of Korea has proposed cooperation on AI and addressing demographic changes as a key initiatives among many other global issues. We are working together with member economies to adopt these initiatives as a standalone document alongside the Gyeongju Declaration at the leaders' meeting in late October.
South Korea is a far more prominent player than it was when it last hosted APEC about 20 years ago. And what's the significance, in your opinion, on South Korea chairing this year's summit in 2025?
Over the years, Korea has built trust and meaningful contributions in the international community. Building on that, the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting, which is returning to Korea after 20 years, will serve as a great opportunity for us to show that we've restored our K-democracy and that Korea is back on track after the political challenges we faced last year. The emblem and the smile of Sheila not only reflect our warmth and hospitality and openness, but also Korea's commitment in fulfilling our role as a responsible member of the international community.
Korea's chairship comes at a pivotal time, showing the country is back on track in global governance after the martial law declaration last December compromised diplomacy at the highest level. Seoul is also positioning itself as a solutions partner, sharing lessons from its own policy tools and technological transformation to help address common regional concerns.
Through this opportunity, we hope to share the experience we've accumulated and offer innovative solutions to help address the challenges faced by the Asia APEC region.
A key aspect of this year's approach is broader public engagement, particularly with the younger generation.
APEC pursues inclusivity and sustainability, but these cannot be achieved without public participation. We are also working to create platforms where young people can take lead in discussing and sharing their visions for the Asia-Pacific region. As part of this effort, MOFA recently held an open call for youth presenters for the public-private dialogue. We even welcomed 16 young people to join our preparatory office as an intern.
Last May, Korea's inclusive approach led to the launch of a Future Prosperity Fund dedicated to youth entrepreneurship, digital skills training, and policy research. Korea committed $1 million in seed funding. As the countdown to October 31st begins, Korea is stepping up outreach with a series of promotional initiatives, including youth-led video campaigns, exhibitions, cultural festivals, and regional media engagement.
With active participation of the public at the core, we will continue to highlight the unique charms of Korea and the host city of Gyeongju, while also carrying out a variety of promotional activities that showcase the APEC vision, the goals and values of the K-APEC, and the outcomes we hope to achieve. Through these efforts, we aim to create a more welcoming and participatory atmosphere leading up to a successful leaders meeting.
Sure, and of course all this build-up of anticipation is extremely important, especially in creating this kind of conducive atmosphere for cooperation. And while we have great expectations for this K-APEC, as you said.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for making time for us today, and see you in Gyeongju.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. The talks between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul ended swiftly on Wednesday with no ceasefire reached, but progress was made on additional prisoner exchanges. The two delegations met for approximately 40 minutes at Istanbul's Tehran Palace and discussed further prisoner swaps, but remained far apart on the terms of a ceasefire and a possible meeting of their leaders. Both sides agreed to advance a prisoner of war exchange, committing to release at least 1,200 more POWs each, including severely wounded soldiers and civilians. Russia's chief delegate Vladimir Medinsky said the bodies of 3,000 Ukrainian soldiers will also be returned. Discussions reportedly included cases of abducted children. Ukraine's delegation, led by Rustem Umerov, proposed a direct summit between President Zelensky and Putin. But by the end of August, however, Russia suggested forming online working groups on military, political, and humanitarian issues instead. The UN's top legal body, the International Court of Justice, has ruled that countries that fail to meet their climate commitments may be violating international law and could face paying reparations to countries suffering the consequences. In a unanimous advisory opinion delivered on Wednesday, the ICJ declared that wealthy and high-emitting nations are legally obliged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, curb fossil fuel production and subsidies, and establish ambitious climate plans linked to the Paris Agreement. Judge Yuji Iwasawa emphasized that a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is a recognized human right, and that failure to take adequate climate action may amount to internationally wrongful conduct, leading to reparations for states harmed by climate impacts. The advisory is non-binding, but small island nations and low-lying states, as well as environmental groups, celebrated the landmark ruling. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also welcomed the decision, describing it as a victory for our planet. The UN World Food Programme announced on Wednesday that food and nutrition supplies in northeastern Nigeria have been completely depleted, putting 1.3 million people at risk by the end of July. The depletion is primarily due to significant funding shortfalls, largely resulting from major donor cuts, particularly from the U.S. Agency for International Development, which previously contributed approximately 45% of the region's budget. Over 150 nutrition clinics at Borno and Yobe states are also being closed, halting treatment for more than 300,000 malnourished children. The aid agency needs $131 million to restart operations in the region this year. Chongqing Zoo in China's southwest celebrated the third birthday of a pair of twin giant pandas this week. The twins, named Yuka, the brother, and Yui, the sister, were born on July 22, 2022. A special birthday party was designed to help them stay cool in the region's summer heat, with frozen fruitcake sculptures, bamboo ice treats, and chilled play areas. While Yui was resting in a non-exhibition zone due to a mild eye condition, Chongqing Zoo officials stated that both pandas are thriving, healthy, and remain popular attractions.
The heat is really building up, with heat wave alerts getting bigger and stronger every single day. Now, most of the country is under a heat wave warning, and this heat is being added by an expanding North Pacific high pressure system. And this means the intensity of the heat is going to get worse even towards the weekend. Today's Seoul's daytime high is set to climb to a blazing 36 degrees Celsius, but by Saturday, we're looking at a high of 38 degrees Celsius in the capital. Making conditions rougher is that burning sunshine. This afternoon, most major cities will see temperatures above 35 degrees Celsius with very strong UV rays. So please be sure to drink plenty of water frequently to stay hydrated. Your body needs it. International travelers visiting Korea, you'll need to beware of the searing heat wave through the weekend under sunny skies, except on Jeju Island, where rain is in the forecast. Please try to stay indoors during the hottest parts of the day and stay safe.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.
right.
안녕하세요. 저는 인도네시아에서 온 방과 회원 무티아라 하이라니입니다. 반갑습니다. 인도네시아에 왔을 때 한국 드라마를 즐겨봤어요. 그러다가 한국에 와서 대학을 다니게 됐어요. 한국 사극 드라마도 즐겨봤어요. 왕과 왕비가 살고 그리고 신하들이 회의를 하고 그리고 궁녀들이 일하는 그런 궁궐에 관심이 생겼어요. 제가 제일 좋아하는 궁은 경복궁입니다. 그런데 AI한테 경복궁 그림을 보여달라고 했더니 그 엉뚱한 그림을 보였다는 제보가 있었어요. 예를 들면 궁 앞에 강이 있고 나룻배가 있다든지 산 꼭대기에 있다든지 이런 오해들. 제가 직접 경복궁을 소개해 드릴게요. 같이 갈까요? 경복궁은 대한민국 역사와 문화의 중심지로 여겨져요. 조선시대 왕실의 위엄과 격식을 제대로 알 수 있는 곳이거든요. 또 경복궁은 외국인 관광객이 많이 방문하는 서울의 랜드마크 중 하나입니다. 제가 경복궁을 사랑하는 이유 이제 아시겠죠? 한국에 대한 잘못된 정보를 바로 찾는 일, 여러분도 함께 해주세요.
We're here to bring a new type of news show. New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Thursday, July 24th here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. And joining us today is Kwon Ji-yeon.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. And also Cheska Dine-hong is with us.
Happy Thursday too.
And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's Thursday, which means we're going to begin with our keyword news, where we look at a story that has been gaining traction over the past 24 hours. And today's keyword is honorary ambassador. There are now just 99 days to go until the 2025 APEC leaders meeting in October. To mark the 100-day countdown on Wednesday, Prime Minister Kim Min-seok announced that the honorary ambassador for the summit is none other than global K-pop icon G-Dragon. The Prime Minister said G-Dragon was chosen for his status as a leading Korean artist who demonstrates creativity and innovation, even sending his music beyond Earth. As honorary ambassador, he will be participating in various promotional activities, including appearing in official campaign videos and helping raise international awareness of the summit. So Cheska, what kinds of promotional activities could G-Dragon take part in to help boost international engagement with this summit?
I mean, if I could, a fan meeting, maybe?
That sounds like a good idea.
I think that would be a great promotional event, but I think it was very strategic that they decided to have G-Dragon as the honorary ambassador, because recently he really became a symbol for innovation, challenge, but also self-expression. So I think in many ways he does align very well with the APEC summit messages. I did hear that he will appear in the promotional videos, so I know I'm very much looking forward to that. And in addition, I think a lot of MZers and young people will be very excited to see G-Dragon appear to promote the summit. So I think it will draw a lot of attention and love from the people as well. Yeah.
Right, and like you said, no one can deny that he has a very huge fan base both in Korea and outside. So we can see how he'll connect with audiences everywhere. Yes. So what are your thoughts on this?
I do agree with Siska. Like, you know, like it's a brilliant move indeed for both Korea and abroad fans as well. So choosing someone like G-Dragon brings not just star power, but a whole new creative energy to the summit. You know, this is known as soft power. He's known for breaking boundaries, and I do think that mindset aligns perfectly with APEC's goals and innovation and cooperation. So imagine him collaborating with global artists, celebrities, curating art installations, and even launching a digital campaign that resonates with younger audiences. Plus, his fan base is incredibly engaged, so the attention could naturally spill over into the interest in APEC itself. So in a way, we are seeing diplomacy and Cape culture building something together, and I found that quite inspiring indeed. So it turns out diplomacy and K-pop have the same secret weapon, global fandom.
Right.
As well, yeah.
So imagine collaboration with global artists. So maybe we can look forward to like maybe a special track. So that will also gain a lot of attention. Wow. So with just 99 days to go, we'll keep an eye on how G-Dragon's global influence helps spotlight APEC's vision of cooperation and innovation. So whether through music, culture, or creative outreach, his role as honorary ambassador will hopefully bring a new generation into the conversation. And that concludes our keyword news for this Thursday. So as we head into the final stretch of the work week, we're diving into a topic that's perfect for all of us. We're looking for some activities to help escape the heat. So let's take a look at a screen to learn more. It's that time of year again when finding ways to stay cool and entertained can be a real challenge as the relentless summer heat beats down on us. But here's one option that lets you escape the scorching sun and maybe even sends a chill down your spine instead, heading to the movie theater. And when it comes to summer blockbusters, there's one genre that never fails to deliver: horror, a go-to favorite for moviegoers looking for a good scare in a comfortably air-conditioned setting. So today, we're diving into how the Korean film industry is helping turn up the heat at the box office this summer. So as we just saw in the video, summer and horror movies have long been a perfect match, offering thrilling chills while keeping us cool in the air-conditioned theaters. The combination of suspense, mystery, and the supernatural seems to capture the imagination like nothing else during these hot months. With that in mind, I want to start things off by asking you, Ji-yeon, do you enjoy horror movies in general?
Well, when I was younger, I was not into those, you know, horror or occult-themed movies before, but now I actually love them. You know, it's quite thrilling and, you know, it's engaging sometimes. But the thing is, my husband, he actually has to cover his eyes whenever he watches, and I forced him to watch the movie. I've watched everything from Whispering Corridors, that is 여고괴담 in Korean, which in fact, fun fact is, it was actually filmed at my old high school because they have this terrifying long hallways in the school. And also watched To A Tale of Two Sisters, 장화 홍련 in Korean. Also there's 곤지암, 파묘, exuma, even 분신사바. Yeah, you know the gesture. So I do enjoy that mix of spooky silence and sudden suspense, and I no longer need coffee to stay awake at night.
That's so cool that the high school you went to was like setting for that film. Like, did you sense any like supernatural vibes?
I think there was something like 분신사바 and ghost stories, rumors around. Yeah.
What about you, Cheska?
I'm so glad Juyeon went first because I'm a bit torn, and even when we were watching the VCR, the little clip came out, I had to put my head down. I'm definitely your husband. I get dragged into watch scary films, but I also want to, because I think as a human being, we all have intense interest in the mystery and the unexplained. So what I do is I do an intense research into the synopsis and the storyline of these scary movies, because K-horror, as we will discuss in today's episode, has a lot of story theme and plot twist, and it's really interesting to learn about them. So I do my research, I make sure when the ghosts pop out, I make sure I have someone next to me, and then I cover up, when it gets too scary. Yeah.
Do you find it still scary when you even know when you know it's gonna come up? I believe
it sets my heart through the roof as soon as I hear the soundtracks playing. Yeah.
So Juyeon, when we think of Korean horror occult stories, there's always seemed to be a certain recurring elements that make them instantly recognizable. So what are some common themes or characters that tend to show up again and again?
I would like to mention this character, 저승사자, or the Grim Reaper, that is. It's a classic figure in Korean occult content, and Sony Pictures' K-pop Demon Hunters is no exception. This is hitting the charts in Netflix right now. Even the boy band in the films Saja Boys gets its name from the Korean word 사자, 저승사자, meaning reaper. It's currently topping the charts on Netflix. The concept of reapers exists in both Western and Eastern traditions, but the Korean saja is quite unique, often depicted wearing flowing robes and a traditional black cat called a Korean cat. What's interesting is that in modern stories, they have evolved beyond just guiding the dead. Sometimes they even save people who wish to die. One example is the K-drama Tomorrow, where reapers help prevent suicide rather than collect their souls. Actress Kim Hee-sun made a bold transformation with a brand new pink hair in this series. Even the Grim Reaper wants a career change and follows K-beauty trends as well.
We have a fashionable Grim Reaper.
Yes.
So, beyond the typical ghost or spirit, Korean horror films often feature a unique cast of characters not seen in Western films that help drive suspense and deepen the story. So what other typical characters often show up in Korean horror films, Cheska?
So another one is called budang, which is a Korean shaman, but it is very special in a Korean term. So what budang is, someone who is, endowed with a spirit, and they usually guard the spirit, and they usually do elaborate performances to either bring good destiny or get rid of bad spirit. And they are usually known to have sort of been chosen by the spirit to do it. And it has appeared in the film Exuma, as we can see, and Juyeon talked about it. It was a great hit in 2024, and this drew a lot of attention because it was quite atypical to see a very young budang. And also in the K-Netflix series Devil Hunters, the character Huntrix, her lineage was also budang. So I think the sort of connotation that you get with this shaman has definitely evolved in the modern content from something mysterious, scary, and sort of unapproachable to something as cool as a K-pop character.
Right, so Juyeon, what makes these characters, such as ghosts we often see in Korean horror films, and their backstory stand out from those in horror films from other countries? And more broadly, what makes the Korean horror genre as a whole so distinctive and unique in their approach to suspense and fear?
Well, that's a very good question. Well, in Korean culture, ghosts aren't just out to harm people, harm the living for no reason. They have a particular reason. That's known as han.
Yes.
They usually have unresolved emotions or stories. That is han in Korean. Han is a deep lingering feeling of sorrow, resentment, or regret, something that stays in the heart, unresolved, on the bottom of your heart. That's why shamans hold rituals not to fight them, but to help them move on. They hold this memorial rite so that spirits can leave this artificial world, this world, and return to where they belong. This emotional death is what sets Korean occult apart, and it explores pain, regret, and closure in a deeply human way. Plus, Korean culture, Korean occult mixes lots of different genres. It's not just horror. You'll find fantasy, action, romance, and even K-pop in one drama. It's chilling, yes, but also rich, layered, and strangely beautiful.
You know what? I feel like it's always hard to pinpoint one thing that makes Korean films so successful with global audiences. But I think what you said about Han kind of is like a key point of why it's so popular, because it's so hard to describe that feeling of like that sorrow, unresolved pain, resentment. But it kind of gives ghost stories kind of like a complex backstory, which is what makes it even resonates with audiences. You kind of feel for them a bit more.
Your heart is like with them as they go through. Even it's a gore horror story. You're like, man, I understand why you're doing all this.
Why you're crying.
And you become so invested in it too. So So Cheska, what do you think is about this genre that resonates with young people, like millennials and Gen Zs though?
Just to add a little bit onto what Chuyeon said, I think definitely that sort of heart and the backstory behind it really makes the character more relatable. So you're not just spectating and watching something scary. You kind of get drawn into the story of trying to figure out why they're going through what they're going through. But on top of that, even someone as tiny chicken heart as I, who cannot stand scary movies, we all have an intense curiosity for the mystery and the unexplained. So I think K-horror movies does that really well in terms of using that to draw people in. And also, I think all of us want a little bit of, superstition, a little bit of something to hold on to appease our anxiety and uncertainty about the future. So I think that definitely plays a lot in the K movies as well. Another thing is even people who cannot stand horror movies get a dopamine rush when they watch. But people like Chuyeon, who love scary movies, I'm sure get a huge rush and the cool when they watch scary movies. So I think that's a great appeal as well.
Right, so we spoke a bit about the unique characters in Korean films, but what kinds of traditional Korean ghosts or mythical creatures are commonly featured, Chuyeon, and how have these figures kind of evolved over time in films and media?
I think I have to mention this ghost, or should I call it a ghost or a female? It's a Chongqing.
A classic. She's a classic.
Indeed. Well, this is known as a young female ghost. It is known as Chongqing in Korean. She's usually seen in a white funeral dress like me and with a black long hair, wandering with unresolved emotions, or Han again. In Korea, when people think of ghosts, Chongqing is often the first image that comes to their mind. Then there is the dokkaebi, often translated as goblin, traditionally shown with horns and fangs, long teeth. But despite their fearsome look, dokkaebi are far from terrifying. They're also so familiar to Korean children. They even appear in nursery rhymes like dokkaebi 황망이. You even spot on one in Korean K-pop Demon Hunters. But these days, the dokkaebi has taken on new forms like the charming and romantic virgin, handsome ones in the hit drama Goblin. The character has evolved with the times, blending mystery with modern appeal at the same time. So who knew goblins could be this good looking? I'm talking about Kongyu here.
What you said about goblins is actually quite funny, because when you think of goblins in Western media, I feel like they're usually kind of styled a bit grotesque. But like you said, with having actors like Kongyu portray them, they're like tall, mysterious.
Long teeth.
He doesn't. He does not. It kind of reminds me of the whole vampire craze during the Twilight era. So that's So are there any other mystical spirits or supernatural beings from Korean folklore that you find interesting or you feel like a bit underrated, I guess?
I think another one that's coming up is Gumiho, a nine-tailed fox. So Korea has a long tradition of shamanistic root, and a lot of animal spirit was kind of embedded in it. And I think one of the animals that captivated people was the fox, the nine-tailed fox. And I think the good analogy is kind of like the Greek legend, the siren, that would lure sailors with this beautiful voice. What Gumiho does, it does with its intense charm and beauty, and actually devours the liver of a human being. Now, the backstory here is Gumiho also has a Han, the unresolved sorrow, which is it wants to become human so badly that it has to do these things. So in the modern webtoon and K-drama, the Gumiho actually taken on a beautiful, beautiful actress and actor who really want to become human and find true love.
I think that's also a good analogy comparing sirens to kumyus. They're also quite similar.
Yes.
So that shift from kind of fearsome predator to sympathetic character shows just how much these traditional characters kind of resonate with people and how much they have evolved and how Korean horror and fantasy often blur the lines between monster and human. But of course, everyone has their own idea of which of these characters in Korean films they find truly terrifying. So to find out more about what really sends shivers down people's spines, we asked our viewers on the Arirang News YouTube channel which Korean ghost or spirit do you find the scariest? And here are the answers we received. The Cheonyeok-kishin, or the young female ghost, often depicted in a white hanbok with long black hair, was considered the scariest, receiving 60% of the votes. And coming in second with 20% was the Kumiho, a nine-tailed fox that often appears in both seductive and sinister forms. And the mischievous yet powerful Dokkaebi, or goblin-like spirits from Korean folklore, accounted for 16%. Meanwhile, 4% of respondents chose other supernatural figures. So to hear more about people's favorite Korean horror and occult content and how it compares to the ghost stories and supernatural figures they grew up with their own cultures, we'll be speaking with someone from South Africa. And that's coming up right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Zeno Slaman, a movie enthusiast from South Africa who's currently living in Korea. Hi, Zeno. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning to you, too. Do you have a favorite Korean occult or ghost-related film, drama, or webtoon, and what did you like about it?
I would say I do have a favorite movie. It's called Koksong. It's a movie directed by Na Hong-jin. And it features one of my favorite Korean actors, Hwang Jung-min. And it's a complex and haunting Korean film. And you know, like, when I watch Korean films, I always feel like you go through a lot of different emotions, whether it's a comedy, action, or horror. It's just, I feel like you go through the same emotions in very different ways. And I feel like the movie Koksong kind of gave me that for sure.
Then Zeno, what do you think makes Korean occult content stand out a lot, and why do you personally enjoy those kind of movies like Koksong?
I think there's more emotion and reflection, social reflection into the movies, instead of like Western movies where they just focus on fear and like trying to make people scared. I think Korean horror movies have more like, you know, it's more like about somewhat the characters' actual feelings and why they are like they are, you know, like a backstory of the villain, as you would say, like a ghost. So you kind of start understanding the character more, and it actually makes it way more scarier to know what the character's feeling and thinking. So I think in that point, yeah, Korean occult or horror movies stand out for me the most because there's so much emotion that makes it, yeah, quite special. And you can watch it several times. You kind of feel it at the same time, you know?
You know, I think it's so interesting when you say the fear is greater when it becomes relatable. And I think fear is an emotion that can be very different versus on cultural level as well. So I'm really curious, are there ghosts or supernatural beings in your home country as well? And how are they different from the South Korean ones?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There is like the spirits ghost type thing that we always grew up with called the tokoloshi, and it's basically a very small dwarf-like creature, and it's said it appears at night most of the time. So like even there was like people checking under their beds before bed.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, that's so it's like a Zulu spiritual creature. And as a kid, yeah, I was definitely very scared because you wouldn't want to go outside at a certain time. And I feel like parents would kind of use that as an advantage to keep the kids inside at an early time, especially in the evening. Yeah, so Yeah, I think the way it kind of differs to Korean spirits or ghosts, the Tokoloshi comes from a certain group in South Africa called the Zulu tribe, and it is a spirit coming from the ancestors. So people would sometimes also talk through them through spiritual communication with ancestors. So I think kind of in that way it's a little different because a lot of it comes from like our history and of certain religions in South Africa. So in that way, I kind of differs, I think.
So what you said kind of makes me want to look up Zulu tribe and the stories behind it after the show. So thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, please do.
So we just heard from a movie lover who told us about his favorite Korean horror stories and how they resonate across cultures. So Jiyeon, could you share any horror or occult films, dramas, or webtoons that you would personally recommend for someone who's new to this content?
Well, I would definitely recommend Pamyo or Exuma to the viewers. Well, it's beautifully shot, deeply unsettling, and full of symbolic layers. It blends in a lot of Korean traditional culture, and the translation is perfect. It's wonderful the way they translate Korean difficult words indeed. Well, but don't blame me if you sleep later because of the movie.
Exactly. So also to wrap up, we have to end with this. Like any other tips for anyone who is watching these horror films and what they should be watching out for?
Right. I mean, these are so exciting and they can get your blood rushing. But if you do have a tiny chicken heart like I do, make sure you do your research and know what you're getting into because it can really keep you up at night. And it'd be best if you have someone next to you who's watching it so they can protect you.
So whether you're a longtime fan or just beginning to explore this thrilling genre, there's no doubt that Korean horror offers something fresh, unique, and genuinely spine-chilling. From its distinctive characters and haunting stories to its deep cultural roots, Korean horror has backstories that set it apart from other films around the world. And that said, it's important to remember that horror can be emotionally draining, so watching in moderation, like Cheska just said, is key. So enjoy the scares and suspense, but make sure to take breaks. After all, it's all about balancing the thrill with your own well-being. We're also conducting a program survey that includes News Generation until August 17th to better meet our viewers' expectations. So please visit us at www.arirang.com or on the Arirang TV mobile app to share your valuable feedback. So by participating, you'll also have a chance to win Bluetooth earbuds and exclusive K-pop merchandise. So this brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Big thanks to Chihyun.
Thank you so much, Sijin.
Thank you for coming in. And Cheska.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching, and we hope you have the best day. We are News Generation.
celebrates the 80th anniversary of liberation. A place filled with culture,